Hi, I'm Claire Mazzionaw, the Vice President of Insights at Heaving. Thanks for joining me today to learn about attention through a neuroscience lens. And just so we're all on the same page before I get started, when I say neuroscience, I mean the science of how the brain shapes attention, emotion, memory, and ultimately decision making. So let's start with why attention matters so much. So the human brain is incredibly complex, and it's constantly taking in, sorting, and interpreting more information than we're even aware of. Attention is important because it's the foundation of memory. It's a prerequisite for trust and a key driver of decision making. So before people can remember us, trust us, or buy from us, they first have to notice us, and that is why attention is so critical. So one of the most persistent myths in marketing today is that attention has disappeared. We hear some version of it all the time. Audiences are too distracted, or attention spans are shrinking, and that the only way to get through is to get shorter, to get faster, to get louder. But that theory breaks down pretty quickly when you look at how people actually behave. So we know people behave in ways that are inconsistent with that because they binge entire seasons in a weekend. They spend hours on TikTok. They will listen to long form podcasts. They just won't tolerate boring or irrelevant content. So neuroscience shows that the brain can focus for long periods of time when the content is actually interesting or relevant. So when we think about creating attention that will ultimately lead to memory and decision making, the great news is that story is still a secret weapon that we have and can use in our favor. So the brain is constantly scanning, sorting, comparing, and filtering information. And story helps manage the complexity by giving the brain a sense of order. Story helps people understand what to pay attention to first, what comes next, and why they should care. So while so much is changing in our current landscape, it's nice to know that story is still a fundamental foundation to strong marketing. So I'm going to share 4 different approaches to creating stories that demand attention. Make Them Look is about capturing attention through disruption. Make Them Think is about making the audience work for it. Make Them Remember is about turning attention into lasting recall. And Make Them Find You is about letting attention spread socially. So I'm going to talk about each of these one at a time. And as I do, hopefully you will see how a compelling story is at the root of each. So starting with Make Them Look. Make Them Look is about capturing attention through disruption. So using this approach, you control where people look by creating that right amount of disruption. Every story starts in the same way, where something is slightly off. The brain expects one pattern but gets another. And that moment of surprise is what pulls attention in and makes the audience lean forward. Attention spikes when something feels slightly wrong, somewhat unexpected, or even worth resolving. And this IKEA ad for Baby Crib is an example of this. So you might expect a baby crib ad to look something like the product with an angelic sleeping baby in it. Or you might expect some claim about safety standards. But instead, there is an actual pregnancy test on this print ad. And the headline, "Peeing on this ad may change your life," is definitely unexpected and definitely worth resolving. Make Them Think is where engagement is earned by making the audience work for it. The joy of getting it is when meaning is revealed through delayed recognition rather than just handed over. It's more memorable. You're making the audience connect the dots. And neuroscience research consistently shows higher motivation and higher memory when people physically engage because we're tapping into that joy of getting it. So you're not just giving the audience the answer, you're just giving them enough clues to discover the answer. And it's this mental participation that often leads to stronger recall and emotional impact compared to a straightforward product demonstration because viewers have mentally participated in the journey. Apple Misunderstood is an example of this, and it works because it makes us think we understand the story before revealing that we were actually wrong. So in this ad, at first, the teenager looks very disconnected from his family because he's always on his phone. But by the end, we learn that he was actually using the phone to capture and create a meaningful family video. And that delayed reveal makes the audience reprocess the story and feel that emotional payoff. So the ad does not just hand us the answer right away. It lets the audience discover it. Make Them Remember is about turning attention into lasting recall. So a lot of content dies the second it ends, but well-placed distinctive triggers, things like sounds, colors, etc., can help move a moment from noticing into memory. So your content can leave a trail that people can follow later. Essentially, the trail acts like breadcrumbs to make it easier for the brain to connect one idea to the next later on. So a couple examples of this, starting with Shot on iPhone. Shot on iPhone is an example that was successful because of its consistency. It used the same Shot on iPhone line and lockup year after year, and it became a distinctive, ownable brand asset that helped the brain remember. So every time you see it, it triggers the same memory structure instead of having to start completely over. Another example is from Always. They built a campaign around questioning why "like a girl" is an insult. They essentially held a mirror up to society to show the damage that language does, especially at puberty. The phrase becomes a trigger in daily life, and every time someone hears "like a girl," the campaign's reframe reactivates. And finally, Kit Kat, and this one has been around for nearly 70 years, but have a break, have a Kit Kat. It works because it ties the brand to a universal moment, the break. And Kit Kat fits because the product breaks. And the idea of taking a break is relevant to the target. So a pause in the day can reactivate the slogan and pull Kit Kat to mind in an ownable way for the brand that, of course, is still very relevant to the target. Finally, Make Them Find You is built around the idea that attention is contagious and is something that can spread socially. So attention is not purely individual. It can be social. So the brain actually likes to track what other people find important. And stories gain power when they're shared, talked about, and reinforced socially. Shared attention is how stories can spread. So Spotify's Wrapped is a clear example. It doesn't manufacture a conversation, it taps into one that's already happening. And every year, people are already reflecting on their habits. Wrapped simply gives that reflection structure, making it visible, shareable, and socially amplified. Social media extends that effect. So as users post their results, compare stats, and remix formats, a personal experience becomes collective participation, and the message gains momentum through engagement, likes, comments, and remixed, strengthening not just relevance, but all the attention it earns. So hopefully you saw how story played in each of these different four different approaches and the different examples. And these examples were, they're highly effective ads. They didn't just happen by accident, but they all did use story to help intentionally design attention that would lead to memory, trust, and ultimately brand decision making. So to summarize, number one, attention isn't shrinking, it's just selective. And neuroscience shows the brain can focus for extended periods when the content is interesting and relevant. Two, story is the brain's operating system for attention, and story brings a sense of order and tells the brain what matters now, what comes next, and why we should care. And number three, attention is the gateway, but attention doesn't count until people remember. So we need to move people from noticing to remembering so that your brand is mentally available when it comes time for the target to buy, visit, apply, etc. Thank you for joining me. And before you go, be sure to view our take on the creative courage gap for ways to grab attention through ideas. Thank you again.